like that moment when you realize you're about to have like your picture taken or be on video and you wonder if you have like stuff in your teeth?
Oh yeah. Are you having one of those moments?
Just never comes.
That's kind of like, oops, turn that around. There we go. You can look at either camera. I like this setup when I stream because I'm like, yay, at least you can be seen everywhere. Hi, this is Kara Tim K, Mary-Katherine Brooks Fleming, or aka this afternoon, I was just that parent who couldn't find my kid at pickup and screamed at the top of my lungs. I wouldn't call it a scream, it was a very controlled yell. Cheyenne! I can't help it that I'm gifted and incredibly loud, and got that gym to shut right up. Only so I could then be told that my kid's classroom had not been released yet. But there was no signage to that effect. I didn't see an email. I don't know. I feel like my ability to eat that is very limited. If you got an MK in the building, get a cage or at least a schedule so I don't have a moment. So, yeah, we're about. I'm sitting here with my friend HC Gibson, Hazel Gibson. If you live in the local area, then you might recognize her from this previous election. I like to think of myself as a patriot. I do love this country. One of my favorite things about this country is that education is free and funded by taxpayer dollars. I like living in an educated society. I like knowing that even though it's not perfectly equal and it's not always fair and just, that we do have some mechanism in place to provide. And so in moments like this, I've been sitting back, like most parents I think lately. I've been sitting back watching this unfold because we had a mini strike last year. I think that's how people are referring to it. It was a mini strike and we got a taste of this.
It was more of a rally. It wasn't really.
It was nowhere near the same. I totally feel like
it was kind of a warning shot.
A warning shot. Everyone saw this coming.
Yes.
Is kind of the point. And there's a lot that's being said and a lot that's going around. And I didn't really lose my cool until Susanna Cordova took over and the messaging changed. Now, my issue with this is that some of the messaging has gone beyond spin into the area that I would call motherfucking lies. If my husband were to come home or not come home and present information the way DPS is presenting information to me right now, he would get the full MK experience, the whole entire bad side of who he married and the full force of that in one fell swoop. I'll let you imagine what that's like. Guarantee you no one's seen that in a while. So for me to be as angry and as vocal as I am right now is a BFD. So I decided, when I get angry, it's hard to take me seriously because I use a lot of profanity. And I'm very passionate. It's one of the reasons I have no intention of running for office. But I thought for this situation, I would get someone who is capable of speaking complete sentences in a much more polished manner than I am, and who happens to be probably better informed and more well-versed on the issues and the nuance of the situation than anyone else I know, HC Gibson.
Oh, well, that's a lot, and I hope to not disappoint you with my knowledge.
You never disappoint me.
Thank you. Where do you want to begin?
Well, to me, this story started about November when the district responded to the proposal that the teachers put forth in May. So, where does it start for you?
It definitely can start there, but I mean, I think to get the full picture, you need to understand that as a state, because of our tax laws, we are the only state in this entire country that actually has our tax code written into the Constitution of our state. That is a whole different subject, but when that happened, we as a state do underfund public education. That is the absolute truth. But that is across the entire state. That is every school district in this state. Actually, the rural schools are hit a lot harder than we are. In DPS, we are very lucky that every time they have wanted to raise taxes for education, it's passed every single time. We in Denver, in the metro, believe in public education. You can see it by the fact that we are willing to pay as much as possible to help it. So while we do fundamentally as a state have an issue with our funding, the issue at hand today, and the thing that's being brought up over and over again, that has nothing to do with Tabor, is what they like to call it. That's our tax code, and it has nothing to do with Gallagher.
Right. Okay. Right, and that's where
I want to clarify that to begin with.
Okay, because I'm sure you saw where I tagged you on Facebook.
I saw a little bit of it, but I was also had to get. I have 2 children, one of which is a first grader at University Park Elementary School, and then I have a son, a 4-year-old, who's actually special needs, and I've beyond.
Our kids are friends.
Yes.
We met, funny enough, when they were in the same therapy sessions. I had known Hazel through the Junior League of Denver,
Yes.
and we just one day, the nanny that brought Hoyt in was talking about, oh, well, one lady I work for is running for office, and I was like, oh, Hazel, that's Hoyt? I had no idea. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. So that's
Yes.
as we connect ferociously on that level.
Yes.
We don't agree on very much, but we're special needs moms, and we are absolutely united in that regard.
Yes, and I will say that today, the only sense of calm that I had was that my son was not put into this situation. That my son was not put in a classroom with teacher that did not know him, that was not a special education teacher, or that had any sort of knowledge dealing with his needs. I was a basket case sending my first grader. I could not imagine sending my son as well.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just say, like, I my heart breaks for kids that had the parents that had no choice. I absolutely breaks for them, because that is a horrible situation that the school district's putting us in.
And to be really clear on what's happening right now, there was an email that went around on Friday. This is not a secret. This is not doctored. This is widely known. It's why I decided to do my run around the block of the school today, when they had recess. And it's one of, again, this is the sort of thing that prompted me not just to speak, but to speak so much and so loudly to risk alienating myself from this community that I love so much. Because, you know, when you're the person yelling in the room, like, hey, do y'all see the problem? People are like, why is she so loud?
Well,
But the email that went around said that the district was so desperate for substitutes that they would take people with suspended licenses and people who had been certified to teach in other states without fingerprints. And ask me how I know. You can fake a background check, but you can't fake fingerprints. And then no one's saying who the people are, how many of those that fit that criteria had to be taken, which classes they're in. The principals don't know, and no one knows anything. And so this is why a lot of people are keeping their kids at home. And no one can guarantee who's in the building.
And there was also a situation that I was brought aware of today, where there was actually a person that worked at Central, at Denver Public Schools Central. And while they do have a college education, they were informed that they wanted them to be in a special needs class. And this person refused, saying that they were uncomfortable, and they were actually fired. So let's be very clear that in this entire situation, our kids they're not a factor.
No one cares about their safety.
No, their safety is not a concern. Their education is not a concern. I've got sending your kids to school. I think everyone knows this. You are putting their life in someone else's hands. You are, as a parent, that is a level of trust that we do not give away freely. That is something that is earned, and that is something that is it's a community. And to have just anyone be able to have access to your children of all ages is not okay. And if the school district really cared about our kids, they would not have done this. They would not have put us as parents in this situation, our children in this situation, and our community. No, this is not okay. None of this is okay.
Huge numbers of high school students walked out of South today saying that it was there was no point in being there. They were, in my understanding, speaking with a parent at North High School, children, like freshmen, I'm going to get the details wrong, but it was like freshmen are in the cafeteria, sophomores are in the gym, juniors, they
combined classes. They gave them, at our elementary school,
worksheets.
They gave them worksheets.
AP Biology gets like
packets.
Packets.
My daughter flat out told me that she didn't learn anything, which I fully expected. I was more worried. Quite frankly, I knew she wasn't going to get an education during this. Her safety is actually my biggest concern.
Mine too. Because no one will answer questions.
Well, they honestly, I don't think, have the answers to answer.
And this isn't on the principals. We're not trying to demonize the administration.
They don't have the information.
They don't have the information. They're being told central office is sending 20 people to you today. Who are those 20 people? Shrug.
Right.
My understanding is one person that was sent to Lincoln was a tech guy, and the only reason he was sent was because he'd been previously fingerprinted. So that would be one more person with fingerprints in the system, but it was effectively like teachers would get angry when they say the worst case scenarios were considered free public daycare, right? Just vote for free public daycare so you can go have a job. And that is exactly what some classes are getting right now with, great, this person is verified, but they're not a teacher, they're not licensed, they're not qualified, they are just not on the sex offender registry. Yay, not good enough for me.
Well, and also I'm not sure at Lincoln, but I know at University Park we actually have paras in kindergarten and first grade. So there's a person in that room that our students know. We are very, very lucky, and we are actually very, very not the norm. There are a lot of schools in our school district that do not have paras like we do. We actually raise money separate from what we receive from DPS. We as a community raise hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that money actually goes towards para's salary. That's how we have them. That is not something the district gives us.
Correct.
And I will say that is another, and we are lucky. Quite frankly, I was raised by a single mom. I grew up poor. I would not have access to the neighborhood school that my kids have access to. Therefore, I would not.
That's why we hang out. She's trashy too.
And I take that as a compliment.
I love you.
I love you too. But at the same time, that means that if I were a kid in DPS right now, in my classroom, there wouldn't be a para. There would be even less people in that building that I would have known that would know me and, quite frankly, know how to keep me safe. So, we are definitely speaking, when we're talking about our kids, as worried as we are definitely speaking from a place of privilege. And I just want to acknowledge that, because there are a lot of parents that don't have the ability to run around the building to make sure the kids are okay.
Absolutely.
Or like me, to be at the school during drop-off today to support the teachers on strike, but also to go into the building to make sure that it wasn't too chaotic, to see what they were doing. I was actually on a text message chain with other first grade parents where we were checking in on the kids and then texting all day long.
I was too.
That is a place of privilege. There are a lot of parents out there that do not have that ability, and you can't fault them for that.
Not at all. Not at all.
And that also, I mean, I feel for them, because I can't imagine going all day not knowing how my kid was in this very, very chaotic, horrible situation.
Me neither.
So,
and knowing that we're the privileged ones and we're this nervous, imagine how that, I mean, I don't want to speak for anyone that isn't in the room, but like obviously there's possibly a greater level of concern and a lower level of attention than news crews have been around our neighborhood. I happen to live near one of the strike central headquarters, so we have a large police presence for the striking, for the marching, to keep things orderly, which they've been perfectly orderly so far, thankfully. It's still, well, we're in the highly visible, wealthy areas. Imagine what's happening out in the places where the news just don't necessarily want to go.
And I also want to say, I found out this information that you were gonna hate, and I'm gonna warn you. At night, early education, elementary school, near Exposition, the teachers, so the ECE program, which is the early education program, it's the kids that are before kindergarten, the teachers that are there are sitting in empty classrooms. So while we are dealing with IT professionals teaching our children, they're actually certified teachers sitting in empty classrooms at night. I found that out today by someone that's at night. So
KNIGHT, it's the name of the school, Stephen Knight.
Stephen Knight. So to me, that just shows another level of mismanagement, that you've actually got certified, qualified teachers, and you're not allocating them to areas that really need them. You're literally letting them sit in the classroom and clean, because there are no kids at that school because they closed those programs during the strike.
They've closed they've done that district-wide during the strike, right?
Yes.
Because they don't think they can meet the licensing demands.
They can't. What it is for early education, you have to have a certain student to teacher ratio, and you also have to have a higher level of licensing. And they do not have that. They don't have that ability because of the strike. Therefore, they closed the early education.
Could we talk a little bit about some of the numbers that you have written down
Yes.
here? I know that when I start to think about the spin,
Yes.
I become so angry, my brain ceases to function appropriately. So
Yeah.
since yours is better than mine, some of the things on the table, the big rumor right now is that where the chatter, the position, and I don't fault the DPS employees. These are closed door meetings. Most folks are not out in them, so there's a lot of here's what happened going around. And I have a feeling that, and I'm just trying to be nice and give grace, because otherwise I might explode, that there might be people that are just repeating the party line that aren't aware that the party line in and of itself is spin. So,
Well, let's start with, I can speak a little more to that. Politics, let's be very honest. When you are in politics, you get very good at spin. They call it a pivot.
Mhm.
So therefore, you to ask me a question that I don't really want to answer, that I know probably you won't like my response, rather than answering it straight out and giving you your answer, I can walk around it. Okay? It is something that all politicians, if they're good, and maybe I'm bad since I lost.
for a first time candidate, you came damn close.
I know. But that is something that you are taught. It is something that you end up, unfortunately, getting pretty good at. It is also something that you are seeing firsthand in this. So let's be very clear here. You're getting pieces of information, but you're getting pieces that they want you to hear and know and repeat. So it's not that necessarily what they're saying isn't true, it's that it's not a complete answer. It's like me saying,
It's like my husband coming home at 2 a.m. drunk, and I'm like, "Where were you?" And he's like, "I was at work."
Or a work function. Well, I was at a work function rather than, we went to happy hour and it went over, and you're like, oh yeah, it's kind of that. So it's not that he lied. It might have been it was a work happy hour. Just, that happy hour didn't last till 2 a.m.
And there were strippers.
Well, that too. So that is kind of what you're seeing in this. They are, there's a reason why DPS has a communications team. That's
how many people on it?
From my understanding, over 20. And there used to be 30 about 10 or 15 years ago, so it's grown quite a bit. And while the school district has grown, I'm not sure why a school district needs a communications team of over 20 people. From my understanding, I believe it's 28, but I know it's over 20. I can say that with...
if it's 26, it's still egregious. If it's 22, it's still egregious. If it's 9, it's still egregious.
Right. They're just like they're lawyers, the amount of lawyers. And let's be very clear here, while DPS is the largest school district in this state, there are other school districts that are pretty damn close to ours. I mean, they are. So,
oh, sorry, I was looking out here. I'm like,
okay.
Somebody made a comment. I'm like, what the? Okay.
So there are other large school districts that we can compare ourselves to. A good example of that, in DPS, there is one administrator for every 7.5 teachers.
That's a lot.
That is unheard of. There's no reason why you would need one administrator for 7.5 teachers when you are a school district and your job is to educate students.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, you shouldn't have that many administrators. You just shouldn't. There's no need for it. I mean,
some of the lines that are being posited right now says, well, we don't have the ability due to the Constitution to Tabor constraints to Gallagher. We can't hire additional teachers. We're capped, but we can hire administrators. So why wouldn't we hire more administrators?
Well, that makes no sense, because if we're capped on the amount of money, shouldn't we be taking, to me, okay, maybe this is because I grew up poor, you've got X amount of money, right, coming in, okay? You prioritize that, right? So if you're poor, the things that get paid first should be your, rent, mortgage, the roof over your head.
Yep.
The second things are food. You have to eat, especially if you have children. I would say number 3 is probably electricity. So that's what you do when you're given a budget. You don't say, well, I have this really strict budget. Let me blow it on my mortgage, and then I won't worry about eating. And that's, to me, is what DPS has done. You're saying that you have these constraints, yet you're wasting your budget where it shouldn't be used to begin with. And let's not act like I said, there are other large school districts in this state, and they manage to pay their teachers more than we do. I mean, central administration payroll is $50 million, with 50 million. Right now, the teacher union and DPS, they're fighting over 8 million. 8. And they have a budget at Central of $50 million. Like I said, the total budget for DPS is around a 1.5 billion with a B. There is money. The money is there. To me, it's about priorities. Do you prioritize?
And normally I don't love throwing out numbers like this and just saying, we're just gonna tax people that make over $100,000 because that is so much money. Oh my God! I'm like, wait, let's take a look at the cost of living. Let's get realistic. Like, why 100,000? Why are we gonna go there? So normally I don't like throwing around numbers like 8 million compared to 1.5 billion. It is huge, but that's part of the rhetoric that's happening right now. Teachers want their starting salary. Teachers at the PhD want their starting salary to be $70,000. Those greedy, you know what? So I'm like, man, we didn't talk that in those terms when the police have a union, the NFL has a union. When their unions strike, we didn't talk this way. I'm wondering, is it partially a sexist thing because it's mostly women? I don't know, but just curious. In terms of what's going on, what did the teachers ask for? Because another thing another bit of spin that's been coming out is that the teachers left the bargaining table multiple times, and failing to acknowledge why that happened, that certain avenues of conversation had been shut down at times being wasted, which, again, throwing the teachers under the bus in this with no acknowledgement of their own role. I should stop talking and let you do it. I'm about ready to curse again.
No, curse. I've cursed a lot today. Well, let's first start with the fact that we live in Denver. A couple of years ago, there was a study that came out that to live in Denver above poverty level is $44,000 a year. Okay, so I think you have to take that into consideration because in different areas it costs different amounts to live.
Yes.
Our teachers start between $36,000 and $39,000 a year. That is where they begin. So they begin below poverty level. Then you want to take in consideration our neighboring school districts. So let's talk about Cherry Creek schools, which if you're anything like me, I've had a lot of friends that leave Denver public schools and move to Cherry Creek, specifically because their schools are better. What they are proposing, what DPS wants to pay our teachers in Denver, okay, it would take them 30 years to hit the same salary level as someone that works in Cherry Creek schools for 15 years. So they are literally wanting our teachers to make that much less money. As a teacher, why would you do that? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know why anybody would become a teacher, to be perfectly honest.
Well,
I mean, I love people who want to. It's why I do this, and it's one of the reasons why we haven't selected into a private school or opted into Cherry Creek or moved. Because, then I can stay here and get really, really mad and talk through these things because I feel like it's part of my duty as an American citizen to care about my community and care locally. But this problem is just so big. It would be easier to up and move, which is not to demonize the people that have done that. It would, after hearing about the fingerprints thing, it crossed my mind. Like, at what point am I sacrificing my children at the table of ideology? I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know if I'm being I thought I was being a good American by staying, and now I'm wondering if I'm just a horrible parent or a shitty person for dying. Is this the hell we want to die on, Alex Fleming? I don't know.
No, I am the same way. For me, I am sitting here today because I had access to good public schools. I was raised by a single mom. My father passed away when I was a baby. Oh. If it had not been for good public schools, my mother was keeping a roof over my head. I was living in Section 8 housing. I was living, do
you know how much fun my dad had at my college graduation, going up to people, what'd you do for a living? Okay, and where'd you send your kid to college? Because he was fascinated with, the cost of boarding school. And it's hilarious that I ended up marrying somebody that went to one, but I digress. So he was like, you paid how much? For boarding school, $250,000. You paid they've been in private school since they were in kindergarten. How much have you spent on your kid? $1 million. It must piss you off to bet that your kid, after $1 million, is in the same room as mine, getting the same degree. That cost me nothing. He loved being able to say that, and to be perfectly honest, I kind of love it too.
Well, that's,
I love being that person that like it's, and I would never say up from my bootstraps, because that's just, I was not born in the log cabin and built with my own 2 hands. But the social mobility, the ability to be that person that went from difficult Tennessee, Smith County, Tennessee, to Denver, that has had an international career, that went to Georgetown, who went to Wharton. I have 2 Ivy League degrees, y'all, coming from behind, like without having taken an AP course in my high school, which I hear offers them now but didn't back then. All that just to say that this level of social mobility was made possible by free public education.
and that is a society that's one of the fundamental bricks of our society as an American, that it's supposed to be anyways. And I'm the same way. I would not be sitting in. I'm from a town that had a sign that said population 201 growing up, and while my high school,
was a trailer park.
My high school had more people than that because it was the entire
County, ours too.
or like not just county but outside the city. At the same time, no, it was public education. I went to a great school with great teachers that pushed me. My mother didn't get to go to an open house. She didn't know my teachers. She was working. She was surviving, and I don't fault her for that. She kept a roof over my head. Thank God, and thank God I had teachers that fought for me and believed in me and pushed me when I didn't want to be pushed, and just were there for me. And then I also feel so blessed that my daughter has a teacher that's fighting for her and pushing her in the first grade.
Yep.
And while we are able to give her things that I never had at the same time, here they're not making any money. I'm from Texas.
No.
Texas, of all places, has a lot of issues. Let's be very clear. Yet they believe in public education.
Yeah.
They pay their teachers.
They
pay their teachers
well.
really well. Every time there's tax increases for education, it passes. It's this crazy thing. So it baffles me that I'm sitting in what I believe to be one of the best states in this country.
Yeah.
I love Colorado. I love Denver. Mm-hmm. I feel so blessed to live here, to have my son here, to be involved in politics here. I love this city and this state. And to sit here and say that Texas is doing something better than we're doing, that's insulting to me.
To hear that funding in Smith County per student is higher than in Denver proper, that's accurate, is terrifying.
Yes. It's because DPS is...
No offense, Smith County.
Denver Public Schools is a top-heavy school district. Other school districts, Cherry Creek, they pay their teachers more. I mean, when you're looking at administrative costs in Denver, they are so high. This school district spends $34 per student on curriculum. They spend $200 per student on central administration. Why? Why are we paying so much money for central administration instead of curriculum, instead of our teachers? The money needs to be in the classrooms. It needs to be with the teachers. It needs to be with support services. It needs to be with the students. If you want to put the students first, you invest in the students. You invest in the students where the students are. That is not central administration. That's at your neighborhood school. Yeah. That is where, if you're going to tell me that you believe in students, that you are fighting for students, that this is about the kids, then that's what you need to do. That's where you need to put your money. Enough of central administration, enough of the communications team, enough of lawyers. I'm just going to say it's bullshit. And stop bullshitting me. Stop feeding me crap and expecting me to A, believe it, and B, like it. Yeah. No, enough. Sorry. Okay.
No, I mean, I
thought you were the calm one.
No, you cursed before I did. I'm really excited. I'm just like, watch me adult, y'all. Yay!
I didn't say the F word, we're winning.
Oh, I'm sure that's good. I've said it in front of children multiple times today. Whatever. They can deal. I'm sure it's not the first time.
Only the last.
I'm always freaked out by parents that are like, my child, we don't use words like that. I'm like, well, what you gonna do sending them out the door? So I'm
getting more information from schools.
From schools?
Yes, I'm actually getting text messages still.
What are they saying?
Okay for the afternoon. The sub was impatient with the kids who talk out of turn and raise their voice. She's sensitive. Basically, that's my class. That's my kid's class. So, well, he was no offense to him, I'm sure he's a very nice man. He's a 20-something-year-old IT tech.
Who has no business being in a classroom? And I mean, bless his heart, I'm
with
sure he didn't want
30 with 30 first graders. I have one. And when she was on Christmas break, I was like, whoa, we do not. Wow, okay. And I love her. I birthed her, and yet she tests my patience. I can't imagine being in a room with 30 of them and having no instructional background at all.
I couldn't do it. That's why I send my kids to preschool. I'm like, I know I'm not qualified to be around them all day long.
So undoubtedly that it looks like there were a few issues, not bad ones. Yeah, sorry.
Well, we're thankful so far that there were no safety issues, but the issue that we know of. But that's part of the problem, is that no one can assure us or will directly answer the questions that would put our minds at ease about the very legitimate safety concerns that we have. But if we were to back up a little bit, so again, the positioning is what the teachers are asking for. The district is unable to provide, so it's like...
Well, that's what they're saying.
That's what they're saying, but like their hands are tied. We can't do this because of Tabor, Gallagher funding, and who... want to explain who Gallagher is?
It's a tax amendment. Basically, what Gallagher...
It's a what? And that was a joke. Just saying, but like people hear Gallagher, they assume it's a person because again... No, but I mean, like, people don't know. I wanted to have
Tabor, everyone says Tabor, and no one knows what Tabor means. Tabor is, like I said earlier, we are the only state in the country that has our tax law in our Constitution. So breaking it down and oversimplifying it, what it means is we can only accept X amount of dollars from us taxpayers per year. And I really, really broke that down. Now they use a formula to determine that amount, and that is where A, overall it's flawed, but B, it's really flawed because that formula works on the economics of the state from years previous. So anytime there's an economic downturn, those are the numbers being used. So when that happens, especially like in Colorado, so when we had that big economic crisis, what, in 07?
Yep.
So as a state, they use those numbers, and then we're determining how much money the state could take. Well, that's unfortunate when we as a state are growing.
Yeah. So at a rapid clip, it's something like 10,000 new residents per month.
At one point it was.
That was from 2018, right?
It's
rapid.
Metro is usually around 1,000. It's a lot. So that's where you're having statewide. We're having issues with infrastructure issues and that is because of Tabor. But the thing is that it is really, really easy. It is really, really easy to blame other things. It is really easy to say, well, and Tabor is an issue. But that isn't the issue we're talking about today.
Right.
Gallagher is an issue. It is not the problem we're talking about today. If you're comparing us with other school districts, right, because that's what we're doing in our area, there should be no reason that we are paying our teachers less than they are paying their teachers.
Right.
None.
Because they're bound by the same Tabor laws.
Exactly. They have the same things impacting them that we do. We actually have a bigger budget. But we also spend more on our central administration costs. Therefore, I'm really, really, really sick of hearing that it's because of Tabor. Yeah, Tabor's a freaking issue, but Tabor's been an issue since the 80s. So let's stop pretending like the issue we're dealing with today, right now, is Tabor. It's not. It's not Tabor. It's not Gallagher. It is an administration that does not want to pay our teachers. At the end of the day, break it down. That's what it is. Because they have the money. They have the money. Like I'm looking at numbers that show that they have the money. It's all, like I said, you have a budget, you prioritize. Obviously, they
have not been prioritizing teachers.
I can't even talk.
As lately. No, it's okay. No, I mean, it's like, I'm angry and I'm tired too.
It's been a long
because
day.
It's hard. The spin is strong. Yes. And it's good, and it's hard to argue with. Like, what they're asking for, that's like asking me, it's like my son running at me and like demanding, I don't know, Russian rubles. And I'm like, I don't have any. And he's like, I'm going to set the house on fire if you don't give me Russian rubles. And I'm like, I literally don't have any. That makes no sense. That is the type of back and forth that the teachers are being accused of being my son in that story. And luckily he hasn't done that lately, but his girlfriend at school is Russian and her name's Anya. And like, he wants to watch Masha the Bear in Russian now, so it's very cute, but I know, right? It's really annoying. He's like, that's Anya's favorite. I'm like, I didn't think I was going to need that until later. I'm like, he's 5. Oh my God. But whatever. All that's a way of saying it's like these issues, Gallagher Tabor, they're like a trump card. So when you're talking to someone that's a bit more pro-administration or pretends to say, I see both sides of the issue. No offense, I hate that. If you ever come to me and say there are 2 sides to every story, you're about to get MK'd. Because I feel that strongly about that crappy statement. So love you, Eric. I know that you didn't mean to say it, and I do apologize to the woman who's got a new asshole after I ran into her in the hallway this morning.
There may be 2 sides to every story. It doesn't mean both sides are right.
Right. A man punches his wife in the face. Do you really care what she did? Brad Pitt. Angelina Jolie takes 6 children. I can't go to the grocery store without planning in advance. She took 6 kids and fled in the middle of the night. She'd been planning it for months. Instead of how crazy she is, what did you do, Brad Pitt? And how long had you been effing up for her to be ready to leave with 6 kids? The narrative always is on the crazy women or the irrational.
You realize the common denominator there is always the irrational women.
Always.
That's for another story.
And that's why I get it's so hard about this, because when you're talking to someone who throws down a trump card, there's something that you might not be familiar with and don't understand. It's a conversation stopper. Well, they can't do it because Tabor. They can't do it because Gallagher. They only could do it with the bond funding that failed in November. And I don't know why the teachers are still doing this, because they're asking for things from people that literally can't deliver it, and I'm like, it's not true. And DPS has not said that directly in some of the emails, but they've heavily implied it.
Well, I'm a little bothered. My communication through the school district should be about my child. Mm-hmm. It should be pertinent information about the weather, strikes. I mean, that stuff is absolutely
the preparations you're making in case this strike happens, not about what the teachers are doing at the negotiation table.
And not
tell me how you're doing your job,
and not your narrative and your spin. That's trying to make me go against the teachers, because quite frankly,
you got 28 communication professionals, they got none. I'm going after the underdog in that situation. Now you're going to have to work to get my trust back.
Me too.
28 people.
The other side is, I've heard people say, well, Susanna Cordova is...
She's the new interim DPS superintendent.
New superintendent. She was hired full-time. Let's be very clear here. When Tom Boasberg stepped down last year, she was appointed interim. So, not only has she worked for the school district for over 20 years, okay? She's worked for DPS for over 20 years. So it's not like she hasn't been here the entire time. She also has been the interim superintendent since last year. So no, they're not picking on her because she's new. She's been here. And like I said earlier, there was a rally last year. There was a warning shot. This has been years and years and years in the making. We're watching good teachers walk away from Denver Public Schools and go to neighboring school districts because we do not pay our teachers.
I mean, no one in their right mind would want this job. They really wouldn't. So if we're going to pay this little, we're going to have the administration throwing their own employees under the bus, then, I mean, who in the world would want this job, and who's going to be teaching our kids? I mean, we'll have no choice but to eventually say, again, not the hill I want to die on, opting out and moving, and what about the families who can't afford it? What's going to be left?
And that is the unfortunate part of that, because I think that both of us sitting here in this room, if push came to shove, we are going to do... I will do everything in my power to fight for public schools, because I believe that strongly in them. At the same time, I cannot sacrifice my child's safety, because, like you said, at what point is it?
Yeah. I believe in the social contract very strongly. I'm like, there are certain things that I enjoy. Like, knowing that if I flip that switch, the light's going to come on. Knowing that if something goes wrong, and I get it, this is not something that everyone in the United States or even in Denver enjoys equally, but if I call the police, they're going to be here in 2 minutes or less.
If there was a fire.
And that if there's a fire, that's going to happen, that the help will be on the way. These are public, and again, I acknowledge again, I'm white, I am cisgendered, I'm heterosexual, I got like a whole lot of privilege there, so I mean, and that this isn't fair for everyone. At the same time, I would like them to be spread equally, but I also want them to exist. It's what sets us as America apart from other countries, that we have infrastructure that literally keeps the lights on and keeps you safe at night. And teachers and police officers are part of that infrastructure. So I'm like, pay the police officers. That job is dangerous and terrible. Pay teachers. Who wants that job?
Well, let's also, yeah.
If we make them undesirable, and this is the fabric of our society, and if we make those jobs undesirable, what is going to happen to society over time? If we make education something that is only for the well-to-do and the wealthy, and like people with like a stay-at-home wife that can yell all day long on a public platform, then what will be left for the rest of us? Who eventually will be not just pumping your gas, but then that disparity is only going to get larger and larger.
Well, that is. It feeds into all of it, because actually if you look at the social contract, if you look at those things, when we do not pay our police officers, you're not getting the best, yep. Right? And then you're getting people that shouldn't be in a position of power, especially over communities that, we can dive into that. But at the same time, that's education as well, right? If you value education, then why don't we want the best? Why my husband, who has an undergraduate degree too, but not a master's, not a PhD, and most of the teachers at my kids' school actually have master's plus, okay? Mm-hmm. So these are well-educated, beyond educated people, yet they're making so much less than what my husband makes. My husband sells medical equipment. You cannot tell me that his job is that important, because God bless him, but it's not. It's not life and death. What he does doesn't change, it doesn't help society. What teachers do actually does. So why do we as a society, are we willing to pay some I won't say all the words I want to say. Why are we willing to pay some person that's doing a job that does not help society so much, yet someone who gives so much to society, we think shouldn't even make poverty above poverty level? Why?
And I look at it a little differently. I don't care who's making money. I care that the people in public service, I care that a prosecutor in the state of Massachusetts, starting salary is $40,000. That means that, who are you going to be getting as prosecutors in the state of Massachusetts first year? Who's going to self-select into that? Nobody that you want in that position eventually. And teaching is going to come the same thing. I feel like all of these, they need to be desirable. That's where the social contract comes in. We will pay you less now for security later. We don't need you to save. There'll be a pension. That was a social contract that's fallen apart. We have busted up unions all over the place, forgetting why they existed in the first place. Which again, we've become we're so dumbed down because we're busy and we don't have time. Unions is bad, and I don't like them. I'm against the negotiations because unions. No unions. And it is that dumb, and that's what you sound like when you don't know anything about the issues, other than, well, I don't support unions. Well, you clearly don't support television, the news, or knowing what's going on. Also, Netflix either. It must be great to be. Why didn't you go to the Fire Festival? Stay down there in Exuma Island. So, did you see that documentary yet? If you haven't, you need to. Oh my God, we watched them both back to back. 2 days. I liked Hulu better. I know
So did I.
Okay, I'm alone on that. I'm like,
really?
Yeah. Most people I talk to is like, no, Netflix is way better. I'm like, I like
no.
watching them squirm.
I like the Netflix one. Definitely made it more entertaining, but I didn't like the fact that who they had producing the Netflix one was actually the marketing team that put on the festival.
Me too.
And I'm like, so I'm supposed to believe the person that
log that got screwed.
Well, and swindled.
That this is fair and balanced. Just say you ain't fair and balanced. It's okay.
And be honest about it.
Yeah.
Don't present facts. Don't present facts like they're actual facts when it was for your own personal gain. But anyways, no. I like the Hulu one too.
Yeah. Sorry. So not to go completely off the reservation here. It has been a really long day. And it is and I watched the gross mismanagement of Fire Festival. And I can't help but think, at least they got lunch. There are kids in this county that didn't today. I do want to pass on some information. I do think that is important that a lot of people may not know. Even at the ECE locations in DPS, you can still get lunch.
You can still get breakfast and lunch. The rec centers in Denver, I think, if I'm not mistaken, from what I understand, are open because there are parents that as unfortunate as it is, they have to go to work and they do not have access to nannies and daycare. And there is some childcare available through the rec centers. I would call your local rec center to make sure, but from my understanding that is available, and I think that is important to pass out because there are a lot of people that this is impacting. And the other aspect is my daughter's classroom is the first classroom on the other side of the front office when you go walk into the school, which is always not something I love. But I do love knowing that her teacher loves her, and her teacher would die for her. And if someone came into that school wanting to do harm, that teacher would put her life on the line to protect my daughter.
For less a salary that's below the poverty level.
Below poverty level. And at the same time, I'm now sending my kid to school with someone that that doesn't know my kid, that doesn't love my kid. And I have to sit with them.
With this being national news and our kids being sitting ducks, I'm probably keeping her home until the strike is over.
It's not a great feeling as a parent. I would walk through fire for my children. I would do whatever it took, and yet I have to sit here hoping and praying that they are okay at the end of the day, and I'm not alone in that. I know a lot of parents that are keeping their kids at home, and I respect that decision.
I know a lot who can't, and my heart is with you. And I want to take all your babies into my house.
And so I think the part that's missing in all this, the part that has so many parents upset, is that they're arguing over
$8 million.
$8 million, and the money is there. They just need to allocate it where it belongs, where it should have been in the first place. And while they're doing that, they're putting our kids' safety and well-being in the balance, and that's real. And we live in Colorado. We've had some really horrific things happen, and so that's already always on the top of my mind. Okay, always. I mean, it was a big part of why I got involved in politics, and the fact that they think that this is okay, that they're okay with this. I'm just give them the damn money already. Like I don't freaking understand it. I don't understand.
I don't either. I don't understand all the time and all the money that has been wasted arguing over $8 million because it might not be as what were the phrase, a sustainable path forward.
Right.
It's bad logic.
It's horrible logic, especially when they took 2 days to prepare lessons plans. 2 days. In 2 days, for just the lesson plan, it cost them $136,000. Okay, they were talking about paying substitute teachers $200 a day, and in 1 week that was going to cost us, I think, $2.8 million, something around there. So the money that they're talking about that they don't have, they have it. They're just willing to waste it rather than investing in our teachers, and that to me shows that it has nothing to do with the pay. This is political theater. This is political theater because the money is there. They could allocate it to the teachers. This is a bigger issue, and it I don't even want to get into it right now, but let's just be very clear that the money is there, and if they really, really valued our teachers, if they valued the safety of our children, the education of our children, they would just pay the damn teachers. And they don't. So I completely understand why the teachers are on strike. I support them being on strike, and if anything, us as parents, we need to be loud. We need to be screaming from the rooftops, because I guarantee you that is when they will listen, and that is when they will freaking pay them. And that is our responsibility. That is our job, because this is our community. These are our kids. This is the future of our country. Why do we not want to invest in that? And I don't want to invest in more central administration. I don't want to invest in more over testing of my child. I don't want that. I want the money put into the teachers, put into the schools. That is where it needs to go. Okay.
Hallelujah! Yes!
Yes. Did you have any questions? Did you?
Well, I guess. So a lot of the spin that has angered me the most that's been coming from DPS is how the teachers are being unreasonable and are continually walking away from the table without owning the fact that they haven't been following a lot of the terms of the collective bargaining agreement, often saying, hey, we're going to open negotiations in an hour, and giving the representatives a very limited amount of time to show up. The most egregious one is the email that went around on Sunday informing us that teachers walked away from the table at 7 p.m. the night before and the strike was officially on, and that they were disappointed that the teachers left. Again, without saying, well, we spent the morning negotiating X. We went back and made a proposal that did not address that, therefore the teachers left, and that's the part that was left out. It's not that the teachers have been difficult and just walked away from the table, it's that they have preempted this. That that final packet that was presented that caused the teachers to be like, okay, we're done here and strike. It had been prepared in advance and presented in a way that everyone said, hey, this had nothing to do with what we discussed this morning. You prepared this ahead of time. You planned to make a strike all along. And maybe they did. And it becomes like, where it gets egregious is again that they're putting it on the teachers. Like, well, if the teachers hadn't left, we'd be at school. You had 15 months to figure out how to take my kid in safely, you guys.
Well, I mean, it's also, to me, I've got toddlers. I guess I'm starting to get beyond the toddlers, but you got toddlers, right? So say your kid wants to eat candy for dinner.
It depends on what day it is.
Exactly. Well, for the most part.
You're talking the wrong way.
But you're having this conversation, right? And they only want candy, and you're saying, no, you can have candy after you eat this. Like, it's just a negotiation, right? Life is a negotiation. At what point, if your kid is just yelling at you and yelling the same thing over, do you walk away? Because nothing's getting accomplished, nothing's changing.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the thing that I think a lot of people aren't realizing with this bargaining is, okay, so there's two issues with the salary problem in Denver public schools. One of them is that it needed to be adjusted for cost of living increases, because cost of living in Denver has increased a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to give you perspective, my house is not in the most desirable part of town, and it has doubled in value, since we purchased it in August 2014.
That's about right.
Doubled.
And that's a lot of Denver. My neighborhood, yeah, I don't even want to get it. It's depressing, but let's just say that you can't buy a house for less than $500,000, and I'm talking like a tiny house for $500,000. So that's one issue. So we've got this issue, right? We've got this cost of living issue, and then we also have they don't make enough money issue, especially compared to other school districts.
And it also isn't clear and transparent how the pay raises will be coming down through the pike and allocated over time.
Oh, yes.
They've asked for something that's clear and concrete, like other school districts have.
They want it the same as other school districts. They are not asking for some crazy thing. They just want it transparent. They want it easy. They want to say that this is your education level, this is the amount of years you've been working, and this is how much you'll make, including continuing education. They don't want a pay structure that includes performance, and quite frankly, I don't blame them for that. You shouldn't be penalizing teachers because they live in an area where you have less parent involvement, that the kids may not have that support at home that other schools do. I mean, it's because of this, what has happened in the schools in Denver. We've actually kind of segregated our schools again. So you've got at my school in my neighborhood, we had one opening, one teacher left. We had over 200 applicants for that spot. And that had nothing to do with the pay. It had everything to do that teachers knew the kind of resources they would have because of the parents in our neighborhood. That is not an equitable system. That is not how you educate. That is not the purpose of public education. Public education should be, you want teachers to go into every school, quality teachers to go into every school to teach these kids, and it shouldn't be based upon, well, this is a good school, they test well, I'll make more money there, so let me go work there. No. That's not serving our kids. It's not. So no, their pay structure should be continuing education, it should be education level, and it should be how many years they've been there. It should not be more performance based than it is anything else, and that is what the teachers are asking. They're asking for what other school districts are giving.
Yep.
They're not, I kind of went off a tangent there. Happens.
The kids scream.
It does. I heard that too. I know.
I mean, everything sounded so good, but it is about that time where it's all going to start. The witching hour is about to hit.
Dinner time. Dinner time is headed our way.
So sorry I haven't been able to respond to all the comments. We appreciate you being here and listening. We just wanted to. I know I am weary of the both sidesism. It does not make you sound fair and balanced. It makes you sound uneducated. I am very tired of, I'm so open-minded, I can see both sides. No. I worked with abused women for a long time, and there are not always two sides to the story, and sometimes there are, but not always.
There may be two sides, but it doesn't mean
I give
one
shit
side's
about yours.
right.
Yeah. And it doesn't lessen the impact. Like, you punched your wife in the face. There is nothing you could tell me.
It doesn't matter that she didn't put your shoes up. Like, no, that's your side is invalid. I'm sorry.
And we're talking about a behemoth with a $1.5 billion budget right now that's bullying, with 28 communications, full-time professional communication professionals, and a marketing firm on retainer also in the budget, that is beating up on a bunch of underpaid teachers in a very public way, using their platform to send spin to the parents to sway us rather than do their jobs and make sure that our kids are safe. So that is what it boils down to. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening for an hour if you've been here for a while. But I just wanted to give a little more nuance as to, like, you know, believe it or not, I don't run around this world angry most of the time. That's not even part of my brand. But you come at me.
Well, it's Mama Bear.
Stick your hand in the tiger's cage. You gonna get mad at the tiger for biting, or mad at the dummy that put their hand in the tiger's cage? And my kids, I mean, I don't think I realized until this afternoon how scared I am, knowing there's a strike going on and knowing that, you know, lockdowns, and she's not going to school tomorrow. She's not going back probably till the strike's over. We'll figure it out. We'll go to the movies every day. We'll make it fun. I don't care.
I respect that decision. I'm hoping that we as parents become more vocal, get more involved.
How are you not upset? How are you not upset? If you're not upset, you're not paying attention.
Yeah. But I think that the faster we do that, the louder we scream, it will end it sooner. So please contact the superintendent, please the school board, support the teachers. They don't want this. This is breaking their hearts. I had my daughter's teacher come up to me and tell me who was in the classroom, and the look on her face, she wanted to be in there with our kids. She wanted to be teaching our kids. She didn't want to be out in 20-degree weather holding a sign. It was so cold. Cheyenne was like, Mommy, do take a coffee and donuts. I don't know this time is going to be, she's going to be cold. My kids shouldn't have to think that way about adults. No. No,
I'm so mad.
I know. And with reason. I mean, this is not, they're playing politics with our children, and that should make everyone angry.
They're counting on your ignorance. They're counting on you they're counting on you watching the news and being open-minded and fair and balanced, and making the teachers defend themselves too. They are manipulating you. Right. They're using this against you.
And you have to understand that also, while the teachers are on strike, they're not getting paid. Okay? So they are making no money. So I don't blame teachers that have had to cross the picket line, especially we're talking about people that could be single parents. We are talking about people that could have kids that maybe have medical conditions. If this strike goes on for over a month, they will actually lose their insurance.
There's a school in our community where two schools. One, both teachers had preemies this year, and because they didn't get paid maternity leave, they can't strike because they need health insurance, and they literally can't afford to strike because they can't afford to go without pay because they're already gone without pay for their maternity leave.
And they also, you have to understand, these people are not, they don't have money. There are some people that are working more than one job. They luckily, hopefully,
and it's not because they want to go to the fire festival. Like, they're not living. It's not like they just need to spend less. I'm gonna come at you. No. Manage your budget.
If you're making below poverty level, how the hell do you manage that? No. These people and these teachers, while they're on strike, are not getting paid. So there's a very good likelihood that if all of the sympathy that we have for all the federal workers, use that same sympathy for the teachers, because they are in the exact same situation. They are not getting paid. Okay, they will not be paid while they are on strike, and they could lose their insurance, and they know this, and they are willing to do this because they are that desperate. To be that desperate that you are putting your life, your livelihood.
This was a last resort. Striking is very much a last resort. They felt like they had nothing else left
to do but this, because that is the corner that the school district put them in. So be nice to them.
You don't have to agree with anything going on in the negotiations. You can disagree with everything we said right now, but the two biggest things, my biggest concern, read something about this. Make sure if you're really going to read something about, if you're going to go all both sides on it, read what the teachers are saying in the private Facebook groups. Talk to parents. Talk to all of this. This is not a big town. You can find somebody that was in those rooms for the negotiations. Talk through the spin.
And there is a Facebook group called Fair Pay.
Fair Pay for Teachers.
Fair Pay for Teachers. And it's a lot of information about the financials, the actual breakdown. A lot of information for parents. So that
can you see the comments? If there are any, we're gonna look at. If you can see comments or questions, I tagged you in it.
So that is, because that's what happens when you don't go to the app.
Oh, sorry for that.
No, I'm sorry. At some age, you start to get like politically or technology.
Yeah.
And I think I'm starting to get there. It's also why I need reading glasses.
Yeah.
You think I'm joking?
No.
There are some comments, but I can't. I don't.
Well, if they're coming from Amy Nicole, then they're good. She's a teacher. Hi, Amy.
Hi. I know. I hope that
I love you.
Here. Okay. Holy crap. You should all laugh at me right now.
Teachers are such a violent bunch. Yes, you are.
Oh, yeah. They have, 8 million, 1%. Yep.
So Lisa Saxon Hembrick, can I ask if you will tell me if this is a public school system? Yes, it is. DPS stands for Denver Public Schools. Larger, but sort of like Smith County. Yes, it's sort of like Smith County school system, only it's more like Metro Nashville. The Susanna, her contract has not been ratified by the school board yet, so...
No, but I mean, they set her up for the position from the beginning.
The
pot money. Actually, yes, I'm glad that... So, that is another really, really, really big misconception. When they went to pass, legalized in our state, great state of Colorado, is pot.
This is politicking, right? Politicking is saying if you vote against this, then you're voting against students.
Right.
Right? I voted against the pot tax because... there was not a line mandating. Everyone said, we can give it to schools, but there wasn't a line that would mandate that it went to schools. So
well, no, there is. But what it is it's $40 million, and it's only for school infrastructure. It does not go to actual school programs. So the money that is written in there for education is actually only for school infrastructure. That was something that
and how much of it's been spent?
Huh?
And how much of it's been spent?
Actually a lot, but they prioritize by school district, and you have to understand that we do have funding issues in this state, and so we actually have a lot of schools outside of the metro that are now 4 days. They can only stay open 4 days a week because they do not have the funding, and I almost wish we were talking about those schools because then I could.
But that's been going on all year long, and it took a strike to get them even into the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about our tax laws and how they're impacting those schools so easily because they are. But what's happening in Denver is completely different and has nothing to do with that. But yes, all of the pot money. Unfortunately, it's last time I had the numbers I looked at, I think it was from 2016. It was roughly about 150 million over. So when they passed the law, they set aside certain amounts for different programs. 40 million of it went to school infrastructure. Some of it is set aside for drug education. Some of it is set aside for law enforcement because it does require them to do more. And some other programs that I'm forgetting off the top of my head. The rest of it actually goes into the general fund of our state, the state of Colorado. So no.
And that was my issue with it because I was like, okay, so what if we have 800 million? That's going to be 600 million in a year that is sitting in the governor's fund. I mean, we're talking about a big pot of money that wasn't set to be allocated. So it's like, if we have 800 million, maybe 150 million will go towards buildings that might not collapse. Great. That is not what I thought of when I had heard pot tax for education. So it's a little, where's the pot money is a very good question. You've got a lot of people asking that right now. and a whole bunch of us that were going, "We told you so," and all you did was call us closed-minded in 2014. They were there. I thought it was badly written law. And before we roll, that there was another ballot measure that failed in November. And that one has been demonized as well. Had this passed, then we wouldn't be in this right now.
Well, and let's also be very clear that amendment. So it was before I got involved in politics. I was actually involved with a great organization called Great Education Colorado. It was started by 5 moms. Go figure, because moms get shit done. It was started by 5 moms whose kids were my kids' age. They were in kindergarten and a DPS school, and they got together realizing that there was a funding issue with our schools across the state. Do you want to know how old those kids are? What grade those kids are in? They are in college now.
Amazing.
Yes, and so that organization has been advocating for public education this entire time. They finally kind of got sick of elected officials, and not that they don't do a great job. Elected officials have a lot on their plate, but education wasn't their top priority, quite frankly, if we're going to speak candidly. And so they decided to get all of the shareholders. They did, God, Lisa worked so hard on this, and came up with this amendment. And it was a progressive tax. So it was, yes, you make more money, you pay a little more. The thing that bothered me the most, that why it got villainized, I can't talk today, is
we're all emotionally
is because the sheer amount of money it was going to take, it looked like you were going to have to give so much money. Let's be very clear. For my elementary school, we give hundreds and hundreds of dollars a year, and there are parents that give thousands of dollars. As a school, we raise well over $100,000 a year to offset what we do not get to help our school. Usually PTAs raise this money for new books and balls for gym. We raise it for para salaries too.
And to give you an idea, my kids go to a much school like further down on the socioeconomic. I'm on the bad side of the park. She's on the fancy side.
I'm on the fancy side.
But there's a suggested donation per child at my non-fancy public school of $700 per year per child.
Ours is a lot.
Sorry, per family. It's $700 per family, but if you can do it, $700 per child.
And that amendment, if you did the math on average, most people would have paid around $36 a year. I would kill for that amendment to have passed. It would have actually saved us money. It would have saved most families money.
A lot of money.
Because we raise so much money for our individual schools. The issue is that it goes to an individual school. So there are a lot of schools in DPS that don't have
the fundraising powerhouse that is HC Gibson.
A lot of other parents that do a lot of good work. I've been pretty busy, so that has not been one of my priorities, but they deserve all the credit because what they do is amazing. But again, Amendment 73 was a great amendment. It would have actually saved most people money if they would have looked at the dollar amount that they spend giving to schools.
Yep.
But and that's another, there will probably be another amendment because that is the way Colorado works. Anytime they want more money from you because of the TABOR, they have to ask you. So I know you get annoyed when you get a 6-page ballot. I know it's annoying that all these things are asking for money. That is the law. That is the law of this state.
And if you're not in from Colorado and you're watching this, when election time comes around, we get something called the Blue Book. It's this thick. It looks like an old school phone book from the 80s, from Metro Denver, not from Smith County, Tennessee. But it is huge, and it's here's the bill, here's the argument for, and the argument against, and the fiscal impact. I mean, it is dense. It is hard to read, and I know lots of people are like, I am really busy. I don't have time to watch a 1-hour random Facebook Live. Someone tell me what to vote for. Because, and I mean, so more information, unfortunately, has not necessarily led to more educated population or better decisions.
Right. I just hope that if you are in Denver, and another amendment comes up that is about education, that you talk to someone. and understand that if we would
talk to us, or if you don't want to talk to us, that's cool. There's this group called the Junior League of Denver. They have a policy institute, and they have meetings and will explain the law to you. And sometimes they have alcohol.
Yes. A lot of times they have alcohol. It's good.
I mean, that's why I go.
Me too.
Not gonna lie. I'm gonna be missing one tonight because I couldn't get a sitter.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd do this instead. Here's my public service. So, yay! On that note, your kids are gonna explode.
Yep.
Thank you. Your coach should love you. Got more questions? We'll find a way to answer them.
Yes.
Bring it on.
Absolutely. Thank you.